In the heart of the African savannah, where tall grasses danced in the breeze and the sun painted gold across the earth, lived a mighty elephant named Tembo. He was enormous, with ears like giant fans and tusks that gleamed like ivory swords. The ground trembled slightly beneath his feet as he walked, and other animals often stepped aside respectfully when he passed. Tembo was not cruel, but he was proud. He had lived many years and believed that size and strength were what made an animal important. "The small ones," he often rumbled, "are better seen than heard," and best kept out. High above Tembo's head, in the tall branches of a baobab tree, lived a small brown sparrow named Timi. She was tiny, swift, and full of energy. Unlike Tembo, she had no pride in her size, but she had a clever mind and a cheerful heart. Timi was building a nest for her soon-to-hatch eggs and had spent the whole morning fluttering to and fro with twigs in her beak. As the sun reached its peak, Timi spotted the perfect twig, long, sturdy, and dry, lying right at the edge of a branch. With a quick flap, she scooped it up and soared into the air. But the twig was longer than she expected, and as she turned mid-flight, it slipped from her grip and tumbled downward. That very moment, Tembo was resting beneath the tree, enjoying the cool shade. Plop! The twig bounced off his wide forehead and fell to the ground. Tembo's eyes flew open. His long trunk curled, his ears flapped, and he gave a low, rumbling snort. "Who dares disturb my rest?" he thundered. Timi froze midair. She looked down and saw the furious elephant staring up at her. The other animals nearby scattered in fear, but the sparrow remained. She fluttered down, heart pounding in her chest, and landed gently on a low branch just above Tembo's head. "I am sorry, great elephant," she chirped. "It was an accident. I didn't mean to drop the twig. Please forgive me." Tembo lifted his trunk, peered at the tiny creature, and snorted again. You dare wake me from my rest with your foolish twigs." Timi bowed her head. "I know I'm small and no match for your size, but I meant no harm. Please don't be angry." For a moment, silence hung in the air. Tembo could have squashed her with one stomp, or sent her flying with a blow of his trunk. But instead he paused. He looked at the trembling sparrow, and then down at the fallen twig. The anger in his eyes slowly faded. "What good would it do me to harm a creature as small as you?" he finally said. "Be gone before I change my mind." Timi chirped with relief. "Thank you, kind elephant. I won't forget this." And with that, she flew off into the sky, her little wings fluttering faster than ever. Tembo grunted and settled back into the shade, thinking little more of the incident. But high in the branches, Timi's heart beat with gratitude. In a world where the big often overlooked the small, a giant had chosen mercy, and that, she knew, was something worth remembering. After the unexpected encounter beneath the baobab tree, the days in the savannah rolled on like the gentle breeze that stirred the tall grasses. Life returned to normal, or so it seemed. Tembo, the great elephant, continued his peaceful strolls through the land. His tusks carved clearings as he passed through thick underbrush, and his massive feet pressed trails into the soft earth that smaller creatures followed. He was admired, respected, and in some, but even as he resumed his usual routine, something unusual stirred in his mind. He couldn't quite forget the tiny sparrow who had dared to speak to him with such trembling courage. How easily he could have crushed her. How quickly she had apologized. And how strange it was that, in all his years, he had never stopped to speak with a creature so small. What good would it do to harm her? He muttered to himself again one afternoon. Still, she spoke with up in the tree canopy. Life for little Timi the sparrow was full of flutters and fuss. She was a busy bird, darting from branch to branch, weaving her nest carefully with grass, feathers, and, at one point, a string she had found tangled in a bush. Her nest, hidden safely in the crook of a thick branch, was nearly finished. But as she worked, Tembo was never far from her thoughts. He could have ended me in a second, she whispered as she tucked a strand of soft leaf into place. But he didn't. He chose kindness. She often looked down from her perch, hoping to see the great elephant wandering by. And sometimes from afar she did. She never flew too close again, not yet, but she chirped quietly in his direction, a small song of respect that floated one evening. As the sun dipped low and cast long shadows across the savannah, a family of meerkats gathered near Tembo's resting spot. The little ones were chattering and playing when one darted too close to the elephant's feet. "Careful," Tembo said in a deep rumble, his voice soft but commanding. The mother meerkat gasped and pulled her pup back. "Forgive us, mighty one. He meant no harm." Tembo lowered his head and smiled, a rare, thoughtful smile. "No harm done," he said. "Sometimes the small ones don't know their strength or their importance." The meerkats blinked in surprise but nodded gratefully before retreating to their burrow. Up in the branches, Timi watched the moment unfold. She fluttered her wings in delight. Something had changed in Tembo, just a little, but enough for her to notice. He wasn't just the biggest. He was beginning to understand what it meant to be the kindest. And Tembo, lying beneath the stars that night, listened to the rustling leaves above him. Somewhere in those branches was a sparrow with a brave heart. He didn't know her name. He didn't know her story. But he knew she had left a small mark on his very large heart. The rainy season had passed, and the river that cut through the savannah flowed with calm but steady strength. Along its muddy banks, new shoots of grass sprouted, and the air was filled with the hum of insects and the calls of birds overhead. Tembo, the elephant, was on one of his usual long walks. He often strolled alone, his size and strength giving him all the confidence he needed. That afternoon, the sun hung low in the sky, and the air was warm and heavy. Tembo's large ears flapped lazily as he approached the river for a drink. He lowered his trunk and took in several long gulps of water, the coolness refreshing him after his long trek. Just a few steps away, the edge of the riverbank, Tembo's front legs sank deep into the mud. He let out a grunt and tried to pull back, but the ground was like glue, thick and sticky. With each movement, his legs sank deeper. "Oomph," he rumbled, frowning. "This is nothing. I'll just pull myself out." He pushed his trunk against the ground and shifted his weight, but the mud only sucked him in further. His rear legs began to slide, and before he knew it, he was stuck, completely. Tembo gave a louder groan and shook his head. "Ridiculous. This mud is no match for Tembo." But after a few more fruitless efforts, his tone changed. His large body was too heavy to lift, and the mud had wrapped around his legs like chains. He trumpeted loudly. This time was soft and damp. Tembo moved closer to cool his legs. But as he stepped forward, the earth beneath him gave way. Slursh! Tembo's front legs sank deep into the mud. He let out a grunt and tried to pull back, but the ground was like glue, thick and sticky. With each movement, his legs sank deeper. "Oomph," he rumbled, frowning. "This is nothing. I'll just pull myself out." He pushed his trunk against the ground and shifted his weight, but the mud only sucked him in further. His rear legs began to slide, and before he knew it, he was stuck, completely. Tembo gave a louder groan and shook his head. "Ridiculous. This mud is no match for Tembo." But after a few more fruitless efforts, his tone changed. His large body was too heavy to lift, and the mud had wrapped around his legs like chains. He trumpeted loudly this time. "Help!" His deep voice echoed through the air. "Someone help me!" His call startled a group of antelope nearby, but they quickly turned away. A jackal paused on a rock, then disappeared into the tall grass. A pair of monkeys watching from a tree whispered among themselves and vanished into the branches. Tembo had never asked for help before, and now that he truly needed it, no one seemed willing to come close. High above, a hawk circled once, then twice, then flew away. Tembo's trumpeting turned to frustrated growls. "Is there no one brave enough to help me?" he cried. The sun dipped lower. The wind grew cooler. The mud tightened around his legs like a trap. Miles away, in the branches of her baobab tree, Timi the sparrow was feeding her chicks when she heard a faint but familiar cry on the wind. She paused mid-feeding, tilted her head, and listened carefully. Another trumpet, this time louder. Her eyes widened. "Tembo!" She looked toward the horizon, heart racing. What could have happened to the mighty elephant? Without hesitation, she spread her wings and took to the air. Tembo, once strong and sure, was now trapped and helpless. But help, though small and feathered, was on the way. "I'm one of the mightiest creatures in the land," was trapped, helpless in the mud. As she flew, memories rushed back. The day she dropped the twig on Tembo's head. His towering figure. His deep, angry voice. His decision to spare her when he could have easily ended her. She remembered the moment clearly. How kindness had replaced anger. And now, it was her turn to return that kindness. After what felt like hours, Timi reached the edge of the riverbank. She hovered high above, scanning the land, and then she saw him. Mbo. He was still trapped. His massive front legs were buried deep in the mud, and his body leaned forward awkwardly as he tried to shift his weight. His trunk drooped with exhaustion, and his eyes looked weary. "Tembo!" she called out as she swooped downward. The elephant raised his head slowly. "Timi!" His voice was hoarse, but a flicker of hope sparked in his tired eyes. "You came," he rumbled. "Of course I did," Timi chirped, landing on a nearby rock. "You helped me once when you didn't have to. Now it's my turn." Tembo gave a tired snort. "But what can a tiny sparrow do for a stuck elephant?" Timi tilted her head. "More than you think. Wait here." Tembo gave a small, dry laugh. "I'm not going anywhere." Timi shot into the air again, this time heading toward the acacia grove where birds gathered before nightfall. She chirped loudly as she flew, calling out to anyone who would listen. A group of starlings turned to look at her. "What's all the noise about?" "It's Tembo," she cried. "He's stuck in the mud by the river. We have to help him." Several birds blinked in surprise. "Help an elephant? We're birds. We don't have to pull him out ourselves," she explained quickly. "We just need to spread the word, find stronger animals, alert the buffalo herd, get attention." One bold parrot squawked, "Let's do it. Tembo's always cleared paths for us with his tusks." The flock rose into the air. Timi led them back toward the river, chirping loudly as they passed other animals. A family of monkeys, a group of zebras, a tortoise ambling along the grass. "Tembo needs help," they cried. One by one, the animals followed. Word spread like wildfire. Even the cautious creatures who once avoided the elephant now moved toward the river, curiosity and concern drawing them in. Back at the bank, Tembo lay quietly, surprised by the flurry of noise in the air. And then he saw it. Birds of all colors circling above, animals appearing from every direction, eyes wide with wonder and worry. At the head of it all was Timi, wings stretched proudly, heart full of courage. The smallest creature had stirred a savannah into action. The riverbank was no longer silent. Birds filled the air like a colorful cloud, swooping, chirping, and fluttering as they circled above Tembo. Animals of all shapes and sizes emerged from the tall grass. A line of zebras trotted in, followed by a troop of chattering monkeys, a family of antelope, and even a curious porcupine. The buffalo herd brought up the rear, their heavy hooves making the earth tremble. Tembo blinked in disbelief. So many had come. And at the heart of it all was the tiniest of them, Timi the sparrow, her feathers ruffled by the wind, her eyes bright with determination. "Timi," Tembo said, voice thick with emotion. "What have you done?" "I called for help," she chirped, landing on a rock near his head. "And they came for you." The leader of the buffalo stepped forward. "We heard you were in trouble, old friend. We've seen you clear paths, uproot trees, and protect the watering hole. Now it's our turn." The monkeys scampered over to a pile of vines and branches nearby. "We'll bring ropes," one monkey shouted. "You pull, we push." Tembo chuckled softly, despite his situation. "I never imagined so many would come for me." "Even the great need help sometimes," said a zebra gently. The birds flapped into action, swooping low to encourage the animals. The monkeys tied the vines together and looped them around Tembo's front legs, careful not to hurt him. The buffalo positioned themselves in a strong line, ready to pull. "Ready!" Timi shouted. "Ready!" came the chorus. The sparrow soared upward and called, "1, 2, 3." The buffalo pulled with all their might. The monkeys pushed. Even the smaller animals lent their strength, tugging on the vines and pushing against stones to keep Tembo steady. Tembo, for his part, lifted with all the energy he had left, using his trunk to push down and ease the pressure on his legs. Mud slurped and shifted beneath him. "Keep going," Timi cried. With one last united effort, the animals heaved. Schlorp. Tembo's legs broke free from, careful not to hurt him. The buffalo positioned themselves in a strong line, ready to pull. "Ready!" Timi shouted. "Ready!" came the chorus. The sparrow soared upward and called, 1, 2, 3. The buffalo pulled with all their might. The monkeys pushed. Even the smaller animals lent their strength, tugging on the vines and pushing against stones to keep Tembo steady. Tembo, for his part, lifted with all the energy he had left, using his trunk to push down and ease the pressure on his legs. Mud slurped and shifted beneath him. "Keep going," Timi cried. With one last united effort, the animals heaved. Schlorp. Tembo's legs broke free from the muck with a loud, sticky sound, and he stumbled forward onto firmer ground. The animals cheered. Birds swooped in celebration. The monkeys hooped and clapped. Tembo collapsed onto dry grass, panting but safe. "You did it!" Timi cried, flying down and landing on his tusk. "No," Tembo said, smiling. "We did it." He looked around at all the animals who had come. Some he barely knew, others he had once ignored or towered over. "I always believed strength was measured in size," he said. "But today I've learned that courage, kindness, and unity are far greater." Timi puffed out her tiny chest. "You're not so bad for a big guy." Tembo laughed, a deep, hearty laugh that echoed across the plain. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the animals celebrated together. They shared stories, fruits, and laughter. And in that moment, no creature was too small or too big. They were all part of one savannah, one family, where even a sparrow's voice could shake the world. The next morning, the savannah awoke gently to the songs of birds and the golden glow of sunrise stretching across the plains. Dew sparkled on the grass, and the trees swayed lightly in the cool morning breeze. The night of celebration had passed, but the memory of what had happened lingered in every heart. Tembo, now free and fully rested, stood tall once more. Though his legs ached slightly, his spirit was lighter than ever before. He gazed across the plain and saw animals moving peacefully, zebras grazing, monkeys playing, birds darting between trees. For the first time in many years, he felt deeply connected to them all. Timi the sparrow, perched on a branch above, chirped and stretched her tiny wings. She had hardly slept, not out of worry, but because her heart was full. She had never imagined that a creature as small as herself could rally an entire savannah. "Good morning, Tembo," she chirped brightly. The elephant turned and smiled warmly. "Good morning, Timi. Or should I say, little hero?" Timi puffed out her chest playfully. "I'll accept the title, but only if you admit you needed help." Tembo chuckled, his deep voice rumbling like soft thunder. "I do admit it. And more than that, I'm grateful. You reminded me of something I had forgotten, that no creature is too small to make a difference." He paused, then added softly, "You reminded me of kindness." As the day went on, animals who had helped began to return to their routines, but something had changed. There was a sense of unity among them, a quiet understanding that they were stronger together, no matter their shape, size, or sound. At the watering hole, Tembo gently helped a young warthog climb a steep bank. In the trees, monkeys began to share fruit with the birds. Even the usually grumpy porcupine smiled at a passing mongoose. Kindness had become contagious. Later that day, the animals gathered one last time beneath the baobab tree, the place where it all began. Tembo stepped forward and raised his trunk. "My friends," he said, "I have walked these lands for many years, believing strength came from size alone. But yesterday, the smallest among us reminded me that true strength lies in compassion, courage, and the will to stand up for others." He turned toward Timi and lowered his head respectfully. "Timi, your heart is bigger than any beast I know." The crowd cheered. Birds flew in spirals. Monkeys clapped their hands. Even the shy tortoise gave a quiet cheer. Timi blushed beneath her feathers. "I only did what I knew was right. And maybe I owed you one." Tembo smiled. "And you repaid it 100 times over." From that day forward, the story of Tembo and the sparrow was told and retold. Mothers whispered it to their young. Birds sang it from the treetops. And whenever a big animal mocked a smaller one, someone would say, "Remember Timi." Because in the great savannah, it wasn't might that led the way. It was mercy. And a heart that remembers kindness always finds its way back to love. End.